Welcome back to the program. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Let's put the spotlight on a particular issue that has got a lot of Nigerians talking, especially the educated elites, people in the academia, people within the diplomatic circle, people with enough information about global politics as well as diplomacy around the issue of situating two possible military bases that do not belong to Nigeria but belong to the French and the United States government as they are pushed out of this particular region, especially in places like Niger, for instance, following that military coup. And the concern was raised by some intellectual elites who say that the federal government should not even consider that option. Remember, a couple of decades ago, or just a little over a decade ago, AFRICOM, when it was the talk of the town, was almost situated here in Nigeria during the time of the Obasanjo administration, even though the pushback then is quite as significant as the pushback now. So what is this all about? Why is this not a solution? Why is this being looked at as a threat? What are the pros and cons of having or even considering such an option? We've heard from the group that signed that open letter calling for the Nigerian government to stay clear of this idea of allowing US and French military bases to be situated here in Nigeria. Well, join us on the program is a well-experienced diplomat. He's joined us to add value to this conversation. We have with us in the studio Haruna Ali Warkani, a retired diplomat with ECOWAS Commission here in Abuja, a deputy country chair of the United Nations Economic and Social Council, a strategy and security administration expert, as well as cyber security practitioner, a diplomat and international affairs analyst. You can say he's overqualified to have his say on this one. Mr. Warkani, as always, thank you so much for joining us on the program. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
Right. The moment I said cybersecurity, just, my mind went to the conversation we had yesterday about the cybersecurity levy that many Nigerians are uncomfortable about. Maybe if we have time, we can talk about, why Nigerians have to pay for their cybersecurity directly through their electronic transactions. But let's start off with a look at what this whole idea stands for and why it is unpopular, especially with most Nigerians since this conversation emerged. What is your understanding of the issues as we know it right now?
Well, thank you for having me once more. And surely on the issue of contemplating the establishment of a military base here in Nigeria, one would say outrightly that yes, it is a decision that Nigeria does not require to even look at, talk less of considering. This is not new, like your intro has shown. This matter had been on immediately after the 2001 attack in the US by Al-Qaeda. America went more or less berserk and started looking for people all over the world and trying to establish all sorts of institutions, which led to the establishment of this African High Command. And with that, Nigeria was like one of the first choices after Egypt, which also hosts one of such things, CENTCOM. So now, as of that time, I recall very, very well, we had the opportunity of also offering our opinion about this matter while in service. And the position was very clear. Don't accept an American base here, because the consequences of having an American base would entail that you are losing part of your sovereignty. The entire land that may come under that military base is actually an American territory.
But isn't that what we do with the embassies, the consulates? They are more or less, the property of the government that runs the embassy.
Yes.
Why is this different?
Yes, for the embassies, fact is they are bilateral. That is to say, We also own part of America in that case, or Britain, or wherever. Here, it's a one-way track. They come, they obtain this, and they own it. And let us know that a military base is something that you can imagine. Perhaps people might not know, but here you are, you need a full-fledged airport. A full-fledged airport. Because once you grant permission for such facility to be built, you are expecting the Americans to come and build an airport that will give them like 4 to 6,000 foot of runway. A fully fledged runway that can take the largest aircraft in the world, because you will expect this aircraft to be coming to deliver military equipments. And so aircraft like the Globemaster 1 and 2, etc. I mean, the largest aircraft that could carry so many weapons, so many armaments, so many mini aircrafts, helicopters, coming to deliver in your country. There are a lot of implications. And the most important factor even is, has military bases translated into any security, defense, or economic benefits for the host countries? That should be where the argument should actually center around. And if we were to go that...
What is the answer in your view over the years, since their arrival in Africa, for instance, or all the other bases that they have across the continent? Has it been a net positive or a net negative?
It's net negative. In fact, very net negative, in the sense that besides promoting sometimes even vices because of cultural differences, these military bases have not served any interest of the host countries. Now, when they came to Mali, they came to Burkina Faso, Niger, the idea was that they were coming to help fight terrorism. And today, these countries are more terrorist infected than they would ever have been. That's why the new military juntas in these places decided to say, I think enough of this, you can as well go home. Thank you for being here meanwhile, but we can do it our own way, which is what is happening right now. Now, you can clearly see if military bases were a solution to some of these security challenges, we shouldn't be having any military incursions or challenges of bandits and the rest of them in places like Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Nigeria in particular. So surely they do not work out as anticipated. Rather, they serve the interests of the owners of these military bases, America or French. And you see, in Niger, the erstwhile governments of that country granted this permission for these military bases, and they were located in Agadez, some distance, very good distance away from the capital of Niamey. And you will ask the question, were they really providing protection for Niger? The answer is absolutely no. They cited these places subject to their own analysis of accessibility from the sea, so that if they must have some contacts with their military ships on the high seas, it might be easier to do so. Air access and what have you. And most times it has been proven that when you grant military bases of this nature, it is not a national thing. It becomes transnational. Because they end up not operating just within your territory or jurisdiction, but across many countries or regions. And so you have difficulties of control. As a national government, once granted this permission and the base is built, we cease to have control over that territory, land and air, because now You cannot determine how many sorties Americans were going to fly into your airspace. Are they paying taxes for this? Most times, no. Do they observe certain ground rules? Most times, no. And so the experience of other countries should be a lesson to us to look at from this background that it might not be in our national interest after all to say America or France come and set up bases here. No. It will only promote their own foreign policy projections, strategic interests around the world, and use your country as a platform. Insurgency will still be there because they are not going to really fight with you. They may come and pretend to be training with you, but that does not translate necessarily into a decrease in insurgency or thereabout.
And in looking at where we are right now, because the Tinubu administration has made it clear there is no negotiation right now about French or U.S. military bases. I don't know if you took you read through the document put together by some of these intellectuals about their concerns, but they firmly believe an effort is being made to cajole Nigeria into allowing for the establishment of these bases here. Based on what you've heard, based on what you've read, the back and forth, where the government is saying, listen, we weren't even considering this in the first place, so we don't know where this is coming from. But the intellectuals firmly believe that an attempt is being made. An attempt is being made in Ghana, an attempt is being made in other countries across the country. They are basically scouting and looking for their next location, so to say. What do you make of what is true, what is fictional, what is just a speculation, and how these things usually work?
Well, you know, speculations might sometimes be an indicator of what might have happened or is about to happen. And so to dismiss it outrightly might sometimes be callous. Therefore, there must have been some insidious move somewhere, somehow, by some people. It will be unprecedented to say maybe 1 year ago this discussion was not anywhere in our national agenda. Therefore, if it is coming up now, typical of what the Hausa will say, Imba Rami Mekao Magana Rami, I think this is where it is. There must be something, there must be some moves.
And is this usually done in the open?
No. These are security considerations, and therefore, surely it's a high-level security consideration. Decisions will be taken only by the national bodies and security institutions, sometimes with very little consultations. And the way these foreign powers come in, they actually, one, come with incentives. If you allow us to have this base, you will have XYZ as economic package,
so we're talking about
support.
Loans?
Yes, of course, political support at the United Nations, at the World Bank, etc., etc. Now, I think they are looking at the vulnerability of a place like Nigeria. We need money. And if we have gone so low, to the point where we can accept a loan of 2-point-something billion naira from the IMF, you can see how desperate we are. Therefore, at this stage, it becomes very difficult for Nigeria to say no to certain things. Nigeria also requires a sense of protection. And that sense of protection is what they will actually promote first, to say, once you agree with this and we establish a military base, some of these insurgency issues would have gone away. Whereas that is never true. It has never been proven anywhere in the world. All the history of military bases have come to nothing other than subjugation of the locals to attitudes or practices or positions of the differences in culture. So you have almost like a culture shock, because in some of these bases, you end up having a situation where the Americanness becomes too obvious, because once you surrender that portion of your territory to America, they come here and do almost everything. And the Americanize.
Our police cannot have access to it. Our military cannot have access to it.
citizens will require some permissions and permits and what have you to even access such a facility. Whereas you see that okay, there will be no light out here, there will be no this, no that, and then people will want to come in. They say no, you can't come in. First is a military setting, two, security considerations, etc., etc. Whereas it is your territory. And they can come out, the soldiers who are likely going to occupy such a facility will have free access to your society and therefore promote their culture in a way that you cannot believe it. And so that has been the danger of some of these military bases around the world. And so many countries have regretted ever having this. So I think at this stage, as the debate goes on, Nigerian government needs to take a cue and learn this lesson very, very clearly, that we do not need either the French, American, or for that matter, any other foreign powers to have military base here in Nigeria. We don't need it. If we ask the question, instead of setting up a military base, can you set up a military arms manufacturing plant? Then you will see the debate will change. Because here we might...
Isn't this usually about interest? Their interest, you know, for wanting to be here, and then us finding a reason to also say, okay, we want to leverage whatever interest you have to now get... I mean, isn't this usually a mutually beneficial move? Because I don't think setting up an arms factory here would be beneficial to them.
No, well, it will not be, because certainly because of strategic considerations of keeping the technology behind those equipments to themselves alone. They wouldn't want ever for you to have such things. But that is the argument we are saying. Instead of a military base, come and set up a manufacturing plant. Because whether we like it or not, we have ended up bringing in some of these armaments into our territory from somewhere else at a cost much higher than if they were produced here. And for instance, France, having now literally taken over as the #1 exporter of arms around the world, if you ask France that question strategically, can you come here and set up, even if it's just ammunitions or munitions depot or manufacturing plant, they will tell you no. Sure. But if you ask if they have a permission for a military base, quickly they will. And let's see. The last military base in Niger had over 1,000 soldiers. And when you house over 1,000 servicemen, that's the residents, plus those coming and going, literally on daily basis, you will see that it's a small economy of its own. And you begin to see that so many things do happen. Sometimes there are pilferages, sometimes there are leakages into the system, and you end up with undesired effects of having such a facility in the country. Therefore, for Nigeria, I think is a very clear no-no for now. Strategically, we have no reason to accept the establishment of any foreign military base here. It serves us no purpose.
We opened the conversation to the public 2 days ago, and it's safe to say that while most people are inclined to disagree with the idea, some think that, listen, our military is inundated, maybe it's going to be a win-win situation for us as they are trying to, pursue their own interests. We also get something with some sort of military support to fight Boko Haram, to fight the bandits, and so on and so forth. So some Nigerians think that, this is a good idea if we look into the details of it. But also, give me a sense of what it means strategically to even have these bases here in Nigeria. Is Nigeria a strategic, geographical location for whatever it is that the French and the United States armies want to achieve with these bases?
The answer is straightforward, yes. Nigeria is luckily strategically located in the heart of Africa, and we failed to utilize this gift from God of a geographic location that we are more or less not in a West African country, not an East African country,
You just pushed us out of ECOWAS, by the way.
Well, of course. A lot of people have made this mistake of saying, are we in West Africa really? Because we are closer to the central side of Africa than otherwise. And so from north to south, east to west, Nigeria is located in such a way that we would have taken advantage of so many of those things. You remember some years back, there has been muted insinuations of assuming we were to be in the aviation sector, we would have provided a very good hub in Africa. But for our lack of sometimes, doing the right things at the right time, otherwise, this is a natural selection of location. Therefore, for a military base, for the Americans, French, or whosoever, Nigeria is the first choice. And when I remember very well, as far back as 2013 or thereabout, when they first came with this idea of AFRICOM, Nigeria was the first choice. But luckily enough, the government then said no. And I hope this government will also say no.
Well, this government is saying that they have not even been approached. So there is no conversation.
No, sometimes that is what it is. Sometimes some of these conversations are going on behind the scene. They are diplomatic and therefore going on covertly. By the time you get to know that a decision has been taken, these conversations must have been going on for a long time. So definitely the civil society organizations that are promoting this conversation right now cannot be totally wrong. There must be some indications in government that something is happening.
And do you think the government is going to read the room, gauge the temperature of the country vis-a-vis its own interests and some of the commitments that it might have made in these meetings that we, quote-unquote, think is going on right now as part of a negotiation to set up these bases in Nigeria? Do you think that the mood of the country is going to factor into the thought process of the Tinubu administration, whether or not to consider this?
Well, I think there are some factors. Given the triggers now that has been sent into the open society to see what reactions are, sometimes it's just like flying a kite to determine the wind flow, direction, and what have you. I think that's what perhaps may be also happening. Second, we hope this time around the National Assembly should be able to be involved, should be able to be involved in this matter. Just like, if you recall when Nigeria was promoting through ECOWAS the invasion of Niger, and the National Assembly stood firm to say no, as a result of outpouring of condemnations by Nigerians, we do not think it is proper for the government to go ahead with that thrust. And somehow it was muted. I think today that discussion should also be properly situated in the National Assembly, because to accept a military base here will require a change in some laws of our nation. And the National Assembly therefore has a responsibility. If they truly represent Nigerians, I think they should listen to this, because you see, sometimes one doesn't pray for, but let's say you have a military base. Were there to be an accident, it is the citizens of the country that might suffer from some of those things. These are unintended consequences of some of these things. They are within your territory, anything can happen, just anything. Because your airspace is going to be fully utilized by these foreign powers beyond what you think. We don't even have total control, radar coverage of the country in a way that you can say we are very effective. So flights will come and go without your knowledge, without your permission, without clearances and what have you. So there are a lot of implications.
Nigeria can be exploited.
Yeah, sure. Very, very well. So for this, we need to hedge ourselves against whatsoever, because the sum total at the end of the day does not just work out in the interest of Nigeria. And therefore, the question will be, why are you even in it for the first time? Okay, we have existed without the military base up to this time, despite the vagaries of our security situations and what have you. Thank God we have at least managed to be people have predicted that Nigeria would have disintegrated in 2015. We've survived it to this day. We are still struggling, yes, but at least we are still a nation that you can say it is a nation with hope that citizens will see a better life tomorrow. So we can as well do without a military base here because we don't need it.
And at the geopolitical level, at the regional level in West Africa, we are well aware of the anti-French sentiment that is boiling, that is very popular right now. And we're also well aware that, you know, the United States is not the most popular government in this region or on the continent even because of its, indiscretions in the past and how right now with the whole Israel-Gaza situation, for the most part, some countries, I mean, you have South Africa, for instance, that is standing up saying, listen, we don't think what is going on right now should be entertained. And the United States, that is seen as the one country that can actually reign in Israel, is not doing so rather effectively. Give me a sense of whether this, if at all, it comes out that the Tinubu administration did consider it, or is it even willing to consider it in the future, where this puts us in the grand scheme of things on the continent, but also in the region. Because as much as we like to think of ourselves as leaders on the continent and leaders in the region as a big brother, we also have to manage our relationship with the likes of Niger, for instance, with the likes of all these other countries who have been exploited, especially by the likes of France over these few decades or so. Give me a sense of what we need to do to consider what this relationship means vis-a-vis the consideration of working with the Americans and the French.
Well, already it's belated in a way because we did say here some time ago that Nigeria has lost its voice on the international scene. Ordinarily, we should be seen to be heard saying certain things or taking certain steps or aligning ourselves with certain positions internationally. But today, it's like we are conspicuously absent, which is very sad. The foreign policy position seems to be very weak, and the world is carrying on without Nigeria. And when matters affect Africa and African states, surely Nigeria should be a voice to be listened to before any action is actually taken. Because we must accept the fact that we were instrumental to the liberation of the African continent in the first place. All the independence struggles in Africa, name the country, and Nigeria was there. Now, today, if we are fashioning out a new Africa, Nigeria should surely be also in the forefront. Unfortunately, we are missing. We are surely missing in action, which is unfortunate. And government needs to retool, I think, the foreign ministry in such a way that we should be able to fit into all that. The giant of Africa position is lost. Our voice is lost. When they look for a reason.
Is it fair to say it's lost, or is it fading?
Well, I think fading might be a process. But lost is, I think, the position right now, because have you heard...
Who has stepped into those
South Africa. South Africa...
You would say across the continent?
South Africa has effectively taken over from us, which is very unfortunate. The question will be...
Politically, economically...
Everything. We have lost our ratings economically. We've therefore lost our rating politically. That's why we are not in BRICS. It's not because we don't want to, but because we didn't just meet the basic criteria to belong to BRICS. And BRICS is where we should belong to, because economically, politically, strategically analyzing and thinking, there's no reason why there should be a country like South Africa belonging to BRICS and Nigeria is quiet. It is now that we are struggling to belong. is belated, though not too bad, but it means we need to double up our efforts to make up for the losses.
And I imagine working with the Americans and the French is not going to boost our standing.
Yeah, well, of course.
Because you consider BRICS, I mean, Russia and China are there.
Yes.
They're the key players there. And India.
Of course.
They're not the best of friends with the United States and France.
I actually was going to say, in the dynamics of West Africa and our positioning, strategically speaking now, it would be very bad for us to now take in France and America as our ally today, when looking at the larger international scene, you will see that Russia, China, and Brazil are emerging businesses and political friends that we should actually be courting. India, I think I appreciate the fact that Mr. President, that's Bola Tinubu, was there and had struck some negotiations with the Indians. Indians are coming up onto the international scene and making an impact. Now, it is going to control a very good size of the global economy, and therefore, courting and becoming friends with people like this would have been better for us than the Americans that we have tried almost everything and nothing works. One of the most, what would I say now, program that America had ever initiated for Africa had been like something like the AGOA. And you can see how it has remained neither here nor there. And so economically and politically, aligning with these countries is not in our interest. And I cannot see a reason where Niger, of all places, could kick out the French, kick out the Americans, and then we, Nigeria, now sit down and say, yes, you are welcome. How? It is unthinkable, and therefore, if this government of Mr. President Bola Tinubu is ever thinking of granting America or France or any other foreign power this opportunity, I think there should be a rethink, because it is not in our interest as West Africans.
Yeah, okay. The government likes us to believe that as far as this conversation is concerned, everything is hypothetical, is bordering the speculative, is all conjecture, is all academic, nothing is being considered. But I suppose if the takeaways are anything to go by, this is a bad idea for the administration and for Nigeria as a country going forward. Let's see what the coming weeks and months will present us looking at this particular issue. But I think the jury is out on this one. And it is as unpopular as it was some 14 years ago when they first tried with Africa. But thank you, Ambassador. As always, it's good to hear from you. Thank you for your informed analysis and perspective. We appreciate you for stopping by on Daybreak.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Viewers, thank you.